This is lesson 217, and it is on simplifying and recording work. So today you will continue to compare expressions as you strengthen your simplification strategies. At the same time, you will work with your class to find ways to record your work so that another student can follow your strategies. So the first problem is problem 263. We're going to use algebra tiles to build the expressions below on an expression comparison mat. And then we are going to use our legal simplification moves that we've been practicing to determine which expression is greater, if possible. If we cannot tell which expression is greater, we need to determine why we can't tell that. All right, so problem A. So we have these two expressions. I'm going to go over to my algebra tiles, and first I need to pick a background. And I want comparison mat 2 because that's going to give me two expression mats next to each other. Then I can close that and go to my algebra tiles. Okay, so in my left expression here, I have 3 positive x's. So whenever I can put tiles in this top region, I'm going to do that. So there's 3 positive x's. Now I have this minus and then a parentheses. So whenever I have this minus outside of the parentheses, I go down to my opposite region, and then whatever's inside of the parentheses, that's what I put in the opposite region. So in the parentheses, I have 2 positive 1's. So I'm going to put them there in that opposite region. And then also in the parentheses, I have a negative x, right? A minus x or a negative x. So I'm going to put a negative x down there in that opposite region. And then if I continue, I can see that I have a positive 1. Now that's not in my parentheses, so I'm going to go back up to that positive region and put a positive 1. Okay. On the right-hand side, I have negative 5. Okay, and that's not in parentheses or anything, so I'm going to just keep it up there in that positive region, but they are negative 5. So I need to make them red. And then I have plus 4x, so positive 4x. And then I have positive 4. All right. So now that I have my 2 expressions built on my mats, I'm going to use my legal moves. So the first legal move that I always like to use is flipping regions. I like to get those tiles out of that opposite region because I just don't want to deal with that region. I want to make these tiles what they actually are. So remember, in this opposite region, everything is the opposite of what it appears to be. So this appears to be a negative x, but it's really the opposite of a negative x. So it's really a positive x. So if I move it up, make it what it really is. These appear to be positive 2, but they're really the opposite of positive 2. And the opposite of positive 2 is negative 2. So I'm going to move them up. All right. Now that I have everything in the positive region, the tiles just are what they look like. So that's just easier for me to deal with. So I've flipped my regions, and then now I like to make 0 pairs. So I can see that on the left here, positive 1 and negative 1, those make 0, so I can take them off my mat. On the right over here, I can make 0 pairs with 4 of these 1's. Can make 0 with 4 of these negative 1's. So positive 4 and negative 4 makes 0. So I can take those off my mat with a 0 pair. All right. So I've flipped regions. I've made 0 pairs. And then I can balance. So meaning I can take the same thing off of both mats, of both sides. So I can take these positive 4x's off of this side, as long as I take the same thing off of the right side. So I can take those 4x's off of the right side as well. And then I can do the same thing with these negative 1's, as long as I take them off of both sides. So now I can see that these mats are equal because I have 0 on both mats. All right, let's try the next one. So on the next one, on our left mat, let's see, we have two x squared tiles minus 2x's. So that means minus 2x is the same as negative 2x. So I'm going to put those out there. And then I have plus 6, so 6 positive ones. All right, and then now I see that minus in front of a parenthesis. So whenever I see that, I go down to the opposite region. So this minus outside of the parentheses is telling me go down to the opposite region, and in that region, go ahead and put what's in parentheses. So in the parentheses, it's showing us negative 3x. So in that opposite region, I'm going to go put negative 3x. All right, so I have the left mat built. Now I need to go over and build the right. So I have, now I'm starting in that opposite region because there's this minus outside of the parentheses. So I'm going to go down to this bottom region, and what I'm going to put whatever I see in the parentheses. So I see 3 positive ones. And I see minus 2x squared, or negative 2x squares. So I'm going to put 2 negative x square tiles down there. And then I have plus 5. So now I'm done with the parentheses. I can go back up to the positive region, and I'm going to put 5 ones. Oops. And then plus 2x, so 2 positive x's there. All right, so let's see what we got going on here. Okay, so now I want to think about my legal moves. Like I said, I like to flip my regions first so I get everything out of that opposite region. So these appear to be negative 3x, but they're really the opposite of negative 3x. The opposite of negative 3x is positive 3x. So I'm going to move those up, flip them up, and make them what they actually are. Same thing over here. These appear to be negative x squares, but they're the opposite of a negative x squared, which is a positive. These appear to be positive 3, but the opposite of positive 3 is actually negative 3. All right, so I flipped regions, and now I want to make zeros. So I'm looking on my left mat, and I can see that positive x and negative x makes a 0, and same thing over here, positive x and negative x. So I'm going to take those off my mat. On the right, I can make zeros with negative 3 and positive 3. So I'm going to take those off my mat. So I don't have any more zeros to make, but now I can think about balancing or removing the same thing from both sides. So I see I have 2x squared on both sides, so I can take those off as long as I do the same thing on both sides. Oops. All right, and then I notice that I also have an x over on the left and an x on the right, so I can remove those from both sides. And now I see that I could remove positive 2 and positive 2 from both sides as well. Oops. All right, so now I'm left with 4 ones on the left and an x tile on the right. So my question is, which side is greater? Since we do not know what x is equal to, we cannot determine which side is greater. X could be equal to 1, and then the left side would be greater. X could be equal to 22, and then the right side would be greater. So for this problem, we cannot determine which side or which mat is greater because we don't know the value of x. All right, let's do one more. Okay, so part C, we have a -1, positive 6 y's, 6 positive y's, -2 or -2, plus 4x or positive 4x, and then -2y or -2y. A lot of tiles. All right, and then on the right hand side we have an x plus 5 y's, all right, and now we have that minus outside of the parentheses. So that minus outside of the parentheses is telling me go to that opposite region and then put whatever's in the parentheses in that opposite region. So in the parentheses I have a -2, so I'm going to put 2 negatives down there. In the parentheses I have a positive y. And then let's see, then we're done with the parentheses, so then we have plus 3x minus 6. So I'm going to go up here, plus 3x, and then minus 6, or 6 negative tiles. So I only put my tiles down there in the opposite region when I have that minus outside of the parentheses. Other than that, I try to keep them in my positive region. Okay, now we're going to use our legal moves. So on the right-hand side, I want to make those tiles in the opposite region what they actually are. The opposite of a positive y is a negative y. So flip it up, make it what it is. The opposite of -2 is +2. All right, so then now I'm going to try to make some zeros. I know that 2y's and -2y make 0, so I'm going to take off these 2 positive y's and these 2 negative y's. And I do not see any more zeros I can make on the left mat. On the right mat, I can make 0 with y and -y. Take those off. I can make 0 with +2 and -2. All right, and I don't see any more zeros that I can make. So I've flipped, I've made zeros, and now I want to see what I can remove the same from both sides of my mat. I notice that I have +4 on both sides, +4y on both sides, so I'm going to take those off of both sides. I also see that I have +4x on both sides, so again I can remove those. All right, and then I see that I have -3 and -3 on both sides, so I can remove those. So which side is greater? The left we have 0, and on the right we have -1, so our left mat is greater. So in class today, we are going to continue working on this lesson. And in addition to using the tiles to simplify, we're going to add a new step and we're going to record our work algebraically.